We have a bunch of speakers on the table. A bunch of speakers and a bunch of grills and a brand new battery. What are we doing? Where are the instructions? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we have the Precision Power from Volunteer Audio. This is the Stage 4 kit. If you go on the Volunteer Audio website, they're gonna have it all set up for you. It's all plug and play. Bo came in, he brought his Road Glide in. We're gonna get this installed on his bike. This is gonna be a fun project. So yeah, we'll talk about what's in the box. We got the speaker grills for the Street Glide. If you have a Street Glide, they do provide you with the Tour Pack speaker grills, and then you have your Road Glide speaker grills. These are for your saddlebags. They have the speaker grills, and then they have the bracket that goes underneath. What's good about these is that they angle the speaker towards you, so you have a better audio experience. You have the template for cutting out your speaker lids, pretty simple to use. And then you have all your plug and play harnesses. And then we also have the TechnoResearch, the ALARIS. This is sold separately. This is to flash your radio. Now, if you do get one of these, they do have a video breaking it down in detail, what it does. That way you can get this system to work with your bike. Now you can do different things with it. You can flash different flashes on it to work with different systems. And then they also allow it for flashing the WIM cable, right?
That's correct.
Now it is married to your bike, so you can't use it for multiple bikes, but you can use it constantly and pretty much everything's free on it, right? So then we have the power cable, and then you do have these HD 14.NF4s. Each fairing speaker kit will come with a mid-range notch filter engineered and designed for the best sound when installed with OE speaker pods for 2014 and newer. If for whatever reason you're not using the speaker pods, it's not required to use them. We have our Precision Power amp. Everything is set on here. They have a tape on here that says do not adjust. It comes preset, so you don't have to worry about anything of that. Everything on here is plug and play, so that's great. They provide you with the instructions. You have a QR code here. You just scan it, and either a video or a PDF will pop up on exactly how to install this system. You get your 2 front speakers. You get your 2 rear speakers. He did get a Titan 8 Plus battery, so we can replace the battery. I believe it's what, 22 pounds? 22. I don't know, we'll test that. We'll wait and see exactly what it weighs. But yeah, we're excited to get this installed. We're gonna break the bike down and get this thing put on, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. So here we're just disconnecting the black connector for the Tour Pack. So we're gonna move the left saddlebag and the left side cover so we can remove the main fuse. And we're also gonna disconnect the negative battery cable. We're gonna lift up the battery caddy. You have these 2 screws and they're a 1/2 inch. All right, so we'll just get some of these wires out of the way, disconnect. This controls your rear lighting. This is for your fuel tank. We'll go ahead and disconnect this now because we're gonna be disconnecting the fuel tank anyway. So now this goes to your fuel tank. You have 2 hoses, you have your overflow hose, and then you have your vent hose. Just lift this up. You can just pop your ECM off. Just makes it a little easier. Now just throw this into a bag so it doesn't scratch anything. Moving it to the side because you can possibly scratch your side cover. We'll lift this up. Now, it's gonna be hard to show you the connector underneath, but you can just take this whole tray off to access your battery. Or if you wanna be stubborn, you can just keep pushing this back and crushing your wires and take your battery out. So we're changing the battery out. We're gonna install the new Titan 8 Plus. So we're gonna take this battery caddy off. So just look what you need to disconnect. For this connector, just unplug that. It slides out. Then you can take this one and slide this one out. They just slide. There's a little groove. It slides onto the tray, and your tray is pretty much free. And then there's a clip on the back. You just push. You just work it out of that clip. Just take your time, and it comes right off. There's a clip right here that goes inside of here. You just work it out, and it'll pop right off. And now you have access to your negative and your positive cable. So disconnect your negative, and then you can disconnect your positive and then pull your battery out. There should be a strap here that'll help you pull it up. So this battery is pretty heavy, but the one we're putting in is light. I don't know if you have one of these, but it might have an internal battery, which is great alarm, but it's gonna keep going. We're gonna wrap this up in a blanket because it won't stop unless we pull the internal battery out. All right, so from here, we're just gonna pull up on the strap, get all these cables out of the way so you're not snagging anything. All right, so this one's coming in at 20 pounds, 5.3 ounces. So we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the new battery. So we wanna make sure this cable strap is out. Just make sure you have enough slack. All right, so this is a lithium battery. You have your positive on this side, negative on this side. So we'll put it like this because you have your positive and your negative. So make sure you have it orientated correctly. And what's cool about this is it also has different posts or terminals that you can add different accessories so you're not stacking up a bunch on these posts. Yeah, I don't know why it says it's 22 pounds. This is at 7 pounds, 9.3 ounces. So we're not gonna connect the negative or positive back up because we're gonna run our wires and then we'll connect everything that needs to go to the battery. But for now, I'm just gonna disconnect the main fuse. So now we're gonna remove the tank. You have 2 screws in the back, 2 screws in the front, and they're a 1/2 inch socket. You have 2 covers, you have 1 on each side. You just pop these little rubber caps off and it'll give you access to your screw here. Now you just wanna make sure that you disconnect the tank from that main connector, and then you have the vent hose, and then you also have your overflow hose. Now with the overflow hose, you can just pull it out. It might be held down with some zip ties, so just cut those zip ties and pull it out. But with your vent hose, you can just disconnect it right here. So all you're gonna do is just push up on this collar and your fuel line will pop out. Now before we start removing the outer fairing, you wanna make sure you cover up your front fender. You don't wanna scratch anything up. Now when removing the outer fairing, you have a total of 4 screws to remove the windshield. Now he does have the Custom Dynamics fairing lights up here. So he has 1/8 hex bit screws, or yours might be Phillips heads, but you'll have a total of 4 screws. Your windshield will come right off. Awesome sticker, by the way. Now you just lift up on this vent and it'll pop right off. Just held on by these 2 retention posts. So I'll just tuck these up here for now. From here, I'm gonna pop the speaker grills out. I'm just gonna reach my hand behind the inner fairing and they just pop right out. We're not gonna be reusing these because the kit comes with all new speaker grills. So I just put these 2 windshield screws back in just to support the outer fairing when I'm removing the other screws. So you're gonna have 2 Torx screws on each side next to the speakers, and they're a T27. So now I'm gonna remove the bottom Torx screw on each side for the wind deflectors. You don't need to remove the top, you just need to remove the 2 bottom ones, and it's a T25. Now we'll remove the screws for the turn signals because the turn signals do stay attached to the outer fairing. For your right and your left, you have 1 screw and it's a 3/16 hex bit. You just wanna make sure you disconnect your turn signals if you haven't already. Now I'll just remove these 2 windshield screws that's supporting the outer fairing, and you can pull off your outer fairing. So now we're gonna remove the headlights. Now obviously if you have your stock headlight, you'll have your 4 screws. You'll have 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and they're a 3/16 hex bit. But this is the Baja Designs configuration. You have your front plate here, and then we'll remove the headlights from the back. Now this top screw is a 5mm hex bit. And these bottom 2 are a 3/16 hex bit. All right, so now to get these headlights off, you have a total of 8 screws. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have 5, 6, and then 2 right here in the middle. So I'm using a 3/16 hex bit with an extension. So these screws do come with a washer. Now these are really small, so you definitely want to add some Loctite when you go to reinstall it, because it doesn't take much for these to vibrate out. So to disconnect the headlight, you just have the retention clip right here, this tab on the top, just push down and it'll pop out. Just make sure when you go to reinstall these two that you check this gasket, that it's seated properly, because sometimes these will pull out. You just push them back in. Now we just have these two screws to remove this bracket. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the radio. You have your main power harness here. You have your USB, AM, FM, and then your GPS. Now it's really hard to mix these up. In order to get this main harness out, you have this tab. You push down on this and this lever will swing out, and then it'll allow you to pull this main harness off. And you have your USB, just push down on this tab. Sometimes you gotta use a screwdriver and this will come out. For the AM, FM, the tab is on the bottom. Just kind of work that one out. And then same thing with your GPS, tab is on the bottom. Push up on that and it'll release. So the 4 screws holding down the radio unit to the support bracket is a 3/16 hex bit. After you take those 4 screws out, your radio should lift right up. Should lift right up. Just kind of work it out. Don't force it and it'll work its way out. So now we have the radio removed. We're gonna install the amp. The amp is gonna slide right under here. When you slide your amp under here, you're gonna have 2 screws. They're gonna mount it to the support bracket. And those screw holes are right here. It's gonna be hard to show you on camera when we're doing it, but it's gonna be this larger hole right up here. You have 2, it's gonna be this larger hole on the top. And once you slide it in, you'll see it's only gonna line up with this hole right here. So here you have the 4 screws, 4. Yeah, there's 4 right there. There's 2 that are invisible. So we have 2 screws right here with your nuts. Those are the ones that are gonna go on the sides. So you'll use a wrench on one side, and then you use either a Phillips head screwdriver, or you can use looks like a 5/16 socket. So I'm gonna have him hold these wires up while we slide this in. So Volunteer Audio sends this amp out to you already set up, so you don't have to worry about setting any presets or nothing like that. So you just slide this in and it's all plug and play. And it just slides in this slot right here and it supports it up here. So it's gonna be easier to use a 5/16 regular wrench, and then I have a 5/16 ratcheting wrench. So we have the amp mounted on the bottom. We're gonna go ahead and run our wires from the battery to the amp. So now we're gonna go ahead and gain access to under here. We're gonna remove this cap to all the wiring harnesses and cables. You have some tape. You have some zip ties. Now yours might be different depending if you've taken it off already. Don't worry about reusing the tape. It won't re-stick, so just take some zip ties and then zip tie it down when you go to reinstall it. I'll go ahead and remove the wire guide. Just make sure you keep a hold of this. You want to reinstall this back to where it goes. You have these little tabs along the sides. You just push those in and it'll release it. Here we have the power cable. You'll have your fuse right here. Don't worry about cutting the zip tie. You want to leave the zip tie on, holds this cap into place, and then this is going to run up to your amp. So we'll go ahead and run this through. Now, when you run this up, I'll show you exactly where to run it up the neck. Pretty simple. So we're just gonna leave this loose. We're not gonna reconnect anything right now. All we're gonna do is just make sure that we have enough slack that this will reach, and then we'll run it up to the amp. So we're gonna run it through the neck, up towards the fairing. So you have this plastic bracket right here that's holding in this harness. All you're gonna do is pop it off from the top. There's a clip right up top here. You'll pop that off and it'll allow this plastic piece to come back, and it'll allow you to slip your wire right through here and then up towards the fairing. So here you have your power cable to your amp. Now, when you go to reinstall your stock head unit, if you're using the stock radio, it is gonna be tight. As you can see right here, it's kind of pushing down on these power cables, the negative and the positive. Talking to Volunteer Audio, they said that, you know, it's gonna be a little tight. Just bend these down to a 90 degree. Just make sure that these terminals are tight in there. Screw these down, just double check. So you're gonna connect it, bend it down at a 90. It is gonna be a snug fit for your stock radio. I don't know if it'll be different for a aftermarket radio, but for the stock radio, it is gonna be a tight fit. And as you can see on the positive and the negative, it is kind of denting up here. So now luckily with the stock unit, the part that is touching the wires is plastic, so you don't have to worry about anything rounding out or shortening out and cause some problems down the road. So we're gonna install it. We're gonna go ahead and do what they say and do the 90 degree bend and install the stock radio. So you can just pull on the cable from the back to get it to bend to the 90, and then just get your radio to slide up in there. The screws are gonna tighten it down to make it sit flush, but still not a fan that this radio is putting pressure on those wires, just making it really tight. Now, Volunteer Audio did an amazing job with all the wiring, making it very simple for plug and play. But as far as this part for the connection on the amp to the power, hopefully they can adjust that later. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and remove the Harley-Davidson speakers. These are the stock speakers. You have 4 screws on each one, and they are a T25. Now you can remove the speaker pod and remove them that way, but you can easily access those screws right here. You just work this speaker out, just kind of angle it, turn it, and then you can access your cables on the back. This your positive and your negative. So you have your negative and your positive. You have 2 little symbols right here, and usually your negative is a fatter terminal and your positive is a smaller terminal. All right, so here's your side-by-side comparison with the Precision Power, and here you have your stock Harley-Davidson, different sizes and magnets. You're gonna get obviously more power with this one than your stock. So what's good about these speakers is that you have different mounting locations, depending on if you have a different configuration on your fairing, or if you're mounting them somewhere else. There's no logo or anything like that, whether it's up or down. Just depends on where you want to have your terminals, whether you want them down or if you want them up. All right, so from here, we're gonna go ahead and empty out the saddlebags, get them prepped up for cutting. We're gonna throw some painter's tape on the lids. Now it's on you how much painter's tape you wanna use. Now you can just do halfway or you can do the full bag. It's all up to you. All right, so we have the bags taped up. We're gonna go ahead and throw our template on. You can't mix the templates up. They only go on one way. You're gonna have 2 screws that are gonna go right here that are gonna hold your template in place. That way it doesn't move around when you're making your holes and when you're cutting. Now, just remember that you are gonna reuse those 2 screws for for the other template. All right, so you can put one hole here, one hole here. I'm just gonna drill some pilot holes. That way we can run our saw bit down here, our saw blade, and go ahead and cut through these sections. Now it's just easier with these 90-degree turns to make just different holes. That way you have different angles you can come at with your saw. And here I'm just using a 5/16 drill bit. Now you can take your strap off if you want to, but where we're cutting, it's away from the strap here, so you should be good. But if you'd rather be safe than sorry and not cut your strap, you can go ahead and remove your strap for your lid and then cut your bags. So I'm just gonna add some tape to the bottom of the saw. That way it has a smooth glide through on top of the template. Just make sure your saw is unplugged when you're doing this. So I'm gonna start from here and I'm gonna work my way down and then just work my way around. Now it's on you however you wanna do it, but just make sure you're cutting on the outside edge along the template. So you wanna be as closest to the outside edge as possible while you're making your cuts. All right, so we reached that 90-degree turn. So now I'm gonna start on the other side and then work my way around. This turn should be a little easier to keep going straight. So I'm gonna do one more right here. So we have this one last cut here. Just know when you do make this last cut that this is just gonna fall inside the bag. So we're just gonna throw the template back on and see where we need to file. You don't need to leave the template on or you might scratch your bags. So we're just gonna see where we need to file and deburr. We'll go ahead and clean this up and then we'll test fit our speaker grill and bracket. So it looks like we need to file right here, a little bit right here, and that's about it. All right, so we're just gonna test fit our lower bracket. This is to mount the speaker grill to the actual bracket and just sandwich everything together. So we're just test fitting it right now, making sure everything is good. We'll put the speaker grill on here just to see what it looks like. Make sure everything lines up. You have 4 mounting locations on the corners here. Everything's lining up. Looks like it's gonna seal up pretty good. So what's good about these speaker grills is that they have the watertight seal on the outside, and you also have a watertight seal on the bracket on the inside. I do think I remember saying in the last video I did with the RockFord Fosgate install, wear some eye protection because you will get some stuff in your eyes, but whatever. So obviously you get your 6x9s. You have your information there on the back of the speaker. And then you have your kit that they provide. So you have your two 6x9s, you have your wiring extension that's gonna go from the front to the back of the bike, and then you have your splitter here that's gonna go from your wiring harness to the speakers, and then obviously these are gonna plug in to the back of the speakers, and then you have your connectors there. And they provide you with some cable ties and some cable tie mounts. So you do have a belt side, and you also have a brake side, so make sure you route your wires and the wires that are connected to the speakers. It's also gonna be green or purple. So your green wire is gonna go towards your belt side, and then your purple wire is gonna go towards your brake side. And that's pretty much it. Let's get them installed. So we're gonna run the extension harness from the front to the back. Now it's on you how you wanna run your harness, but we're just gonna run it the same way we ran the power cable. So I would just follow along that. Now depending on where your connector is, his is right here. You just take off the cap, it's probably capped up, and then you just go male to female, and it's gonna only go in one way. And then from here, you can either run it back. You just wanna make sure you have the right connector going the right direction, or you're gonna have to take it all out and then reroute it again. Then I'll just route the wire next to the other wire. Now you can run it on the right side or the left, but there's plenty of room on this left side, so we're just gonna run it down here. That way that top cover sits nice and flush. So here you have your speaker wiring. Obviously this is gonna go towards the inside of the bag. You have your grommet right here. It is a split grommet, so you can't actually just pull it off. Now, if you don't know the size of the grommet, you can always just use a step drill. Just make sure whatever location you're gonna pick, that those wires are gonna reach from the splitter to the actual speaker. So you can measure those out, but then you also wanna make sure when you're installing this that you're not gonna hit any wires back here. If you have any lights installed, just look inside your bag, making sure you're not gonna be hitting anything. But we're gonna be mounting this one right about here. It'll still have plenty of length to reach the speaker and also reach the splitter. I'm gonna go ahead and take this up. So I'll start with a 3/8 bit to drill a pilot hole. Now, if you're unsure of the size of the grommet, just do it in steps. Check the grommet if it fits, then just keep drilling more if you need to. Here I'm just using my deburring tool to clean this hole up. So we'll go ahead and get this in. Now you can always add some spit, or you can actually add some assembly lube, and it actually slides in there pretty easy. Now that I know the grommet fits, I'm gonna go ahead and run my wire through. Obviously we want the terminals going towards the inside of the bag. Then you take your grommet. It's got a split in the middle, so it's easy to install right here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take some cable tie mounts, and I'm just gonna route this up. Now it's on you if you wanna route it this way or this way. You just wanna make sure you're staying clear of your shocks, and you also don't wanna impede anything when closing and opening your lid. So I'll just run it right here, and then we have our connector right here. Just make sure you clean off your bag before you mount the cable tie mounts. And it's gonna be the same thing for the other bag. So now I'm gonna go ahead and mount the speaker grill bracket and sandwich these two together. Obviously you can't mix these up, they're only gonna fit in one certain spot. So you have a total of 4 screws that are gonna mount the speaker grill to the speaker bracket. So to mount your speaker to the bracket, you have these screws with the built-in looking washers. You're gonna use those. Now it's on you which way you want to face them when you mount them up. You just got to make sure that your terminals are going to reach your connectors. You have a brake side, and then your belt side is going to go to this one. And if you look at your connectors, green to green, and then you have purple to purple. Now the terminal on the speaker for the negative is a little large. It was too big for the wire, so we had to use a set of snap ring pliers to open it up in order for it to fit. So we have our harness that's going up to the speaker connection, and then here we have our splitter. It only goes on one way. Push it on until it clicks. All right, so from here, I'm gonna go ahead and connect the positive and then the negative, and then also I'll connect the terminals leading up to the amp. We'll obviously clean this all up. We'll put our battery caddy back on, put our ECM back on, but we wanna make sure everything works, so we'll throw on our main fuse and run a test. Now don't forget to connect your blue wire. This is your amp turn on switch. Now the connector for this wire is usually capped up and it's located on the top in between the left speaker pod and the radio. So the harness coming from the amp has a built-in splitter. You plug one end into the factory harness. Same thing, it has a latch, it just locks down. And then you plug the other end of the splitter into the factory radio. All right, so we ran a test, everything works. We're gonna go ahead and button this all up. So here we have the Baja design headlights. So the only issue we're running into here is when we're remounting this headlight here. It's running into this amp on the top of this corner. So we're probably gonna have to shave this down. I don't see any other way as far as disconnecting the headlight from this bracket. So we're gonna go ahead and shave this down so we can actually get this headlight on. So if you do have the Baja Designs headlight, you probably will run into issues as far as your headlight clearance and your bracket for the amp.